The Plains Indians considered the buffalo a sacred animal and religious symbol. As part of the natural world, it was guaranteed to them by their creator. The buffalo was also a source of food, hide for teepees, utensils, shields, weapons, sinew for sewing garments, blankets for winter. The importance of the buffalo to Native Americans long predates the arrival of Europeans. The dog may be man's best friend, but the horse made history. Tribal stories tell of ancient times before the horse hunting buffalo on foot, which must have looked like this. It is understandable among native tribes. The horse was a symbol of strength and wealth, considered a sacred animal that should be protected at all times. It is understandable that the Indian tribes put great effort into stealing horses from their enemies, but also they hunted wild horses found on the plains with equal effort. The origin of the horse in North America is complex. It's now believed the origin of the horse is North America. 4.5 million years ago, the horse existed here and nowhere else on Earth. For unknown reasons, the horse became extinct, but not before they migrated across the Bering Land Bridge into Asia and then spread across to Europe. So, how did the horse get reintroduced to North America and revolutionize the life of Indians? The popular belief is with the Spanish conquest of South America in the early 16th century. The horse was introduced and over a few hundred years migrated northward and eventually was captured or traded to the Indians. Well, quite possibly not so. Mounting study, evidence, and stories passed down through many different tribes say the horse was here before the Spanish. Petroglyphs suggesting Indian use of the horse predate Spanish arrival. The Spanish horse was long-legged and leaner. The Indian horses were shorter-legged, thicker bodies, different head shape, fed on local forage, and survived bitter cold winters the Spanish horses couldn't. Some Indian tribes used saddles, but they closely resemble those of the Mongols. If they had never seen horses until introduced by the Spanish, why wouldn't they have copied the Spanish style? The Plains Indian horses closely resembled the Norsemen or Vikings horses brought here between 1000 and 1300 AD. Could they have been introduced by the great Chinese fleets that landed in California coast? Recent discovery of non-Spanish origin horse in Canada indicates they were related to the Yakut horses in Siberia. If anyone says with absolute certainty when the horse was introduced to Native Americans, well, they're most likely wrong. Hunting buffalo from horseback with just a bow and arrow or spear was necessary in order to sustain the tribe. Various tactics were employed, driving the herd in the direction of a cliff and forcing them over the edge. Another tactic was to disguise themselves as buffalo in order to get closer to the herd. The hunt was dangerous to both horse and rider, and often there were injuries. This image dramatizes the power of the buffalo. One of the hunters has been thrown from his horse and is under the buffalo. Things changed drastically after the Civil War. As settlers pushed west, the military built forts and railroads. All these men required meat to feed the swelling number of people. Back east, a demand grew for coats and robes of buffalo hide. Even buffalo tongues were considered a delicacy in fine restaurants. By 1880, the demand brought buffalo hunters and skinners, estimated at 5,000. With their long-range rifles, they could kill 250 buffalo a day. Seen here is an 1874 image of a buffalo hunter stripping the hide and leaving the rest to rot. There were some famous names among the hunters: Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, Wild Bill Hickok, and William F. Cody, who earned his name Buffalo, just to mention a few. To grasp the numbers, here's an image of a buffalo skull pile in 1872. Leavenworth, Kansas, became the center for processing buffalo. Seen here is a pile of 40,000 buffalo hides. By the late 1700s, it is estimated there were 60 million buffalo. 100 years later, 1890, there were 541 buffalo, headed for extinction. Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone. The words of a general commanding forces on the plains. It became the Army's policy to encourage the slaughter of the buffalo to extinction as a way to rob the Indian of his food supply and retreat to the reservation. This sculpture is entitled "Now That the Buffalo's Gone" and represents the anger and despair the Native American tribes felt seeing this occur right before their eyes. They would soon be dependent on the father in Washington to feed and clothe them. Eventually, the government placed a number of buffalo in Yellowstone under the protection of a national park. Today, it is estimated there's 150,000 buffalo. And thanks to the film, we all know the word Tatanka, which is Lakota Sioux for buffalo. Although it's uncertain exactly when Native Americans acquired the horse, it is clear that in addition to simple transportation, the horse provided the Indian two critical capabilities. The first is tracking and hunting buffalo, far more effectively than on foot, and the second is making war, initially on rival tribes and later against the steady onslaught of settlers moving westward. And for the cowboy, it was equally as vital, especially for the long cattle drives to deliver beef to the heavily populated portions of our country. Perhaps the most moving image of the connection between man and horse is captured in this bronze sculpture casted in 1903, entitled "The Last Drop." The trooper is kneeling before his mount, using his campaign hat to share his last drop of water from his canteen. The buffalo skull has become a standard image in the depiction of the western prairies and the loss that Native Americans experienced at their slaughter. It is kind of unique that a large animal skull has become a decorative feature in a piece of art. It seems like all representations of the West, history, literature, or film, always portray that magnificent animal, the horse, as winning the West. This view of the difficulty crossing mountains might question that a little. This image of the mountain mule was painted by one of the giants in Western art, Clark Hewlings. Now, who knows the difference between a donkey and a mule? If you lived back then, you would. The donkey is a distinct species of animals, as is the horse. The mule is not. It is a hybrid, a cross between a female horse and a male donkey. So, comparing mules to horses. Mules can carry more weight, have more endurance, eat rougher, less demanding food, live twice as long, have a much longer work span of life, have better balance, can walk where horses can't, have tougher coat, easier to maintain, generally don't need to be shod, can be ridden like a horse, and, as I said, easier to maintain. Well, there's a pattern here. The mule wins everything, except speed. The mule tops out at half the speed of a horse. So, if you're robbing a bank, running from a posse, or being chased by Indians, The horse wins out. Episode 10 explores two exceptional figures in the settling of the West, Chief Rain in the Face and Chief Forebears of the Mandans. They are the subject of continuous study by artists even today.